Welcome to Tips and Tricks. This video is going to start out with very basic tips and progress into slightly more advanced and specific situational tricks. The number one thing you'll hear amongst photographers in the model horse hobby is that you want to keep your camera at eye level or below of the model. Let's talk about real horses for a minute. Horses are large animals. Most photos are taken at eye level or below, as horses are bigger than us. Yes, there's the odd photo taken from above from, say, a helicopter, but those typically aren't the ones winning awards. Now back to model horses. For realism, we like to avoid those helicopter shots and stay at eye level or below. This often means having to get down on the ground and dirty to get that perfect shot. My next tip complements the last, and it's knee pads. Knee pads are a lifesaver when you're shooting on rocky or rough surfaces. This way you can get low to the ground without tearing up your knees. You can usually find them in the garden section of stores like Walmart, and they're quite affordable. I always keep mine in my photo bag. Another thing I keep in my photo bag is a pair of scissors. You never know when you're going to find some rogue grass or weeds that are out of scale. Another basic tip is to avoid flash at all costs. I know the camera will often say you need to use a flash in low lighting, but just don't. It's not going to turn out the way you want. Instead, set your camera on the ground and use a long shutter speed. I have more information on how to do this in my technical aspects video, Shutter. My next tip is to leave what is called eye space. You don't want to completely fill the frame with the model. Leave some space on the side that they are looking. This is especially important to consider with running models. Leave them space to run in the picture can really boost your image. When a viewer is first looking at the image, they will look at the model and then follow the direction the model is looking or going. This is why eye space is important. Though this isn't a hard rule, more of just a suggestion to consider. If you are shooting in grass or snow, you don't want your model to be belly height deep in it. While snow can be compacted down to create a hard spot for them to stand, I do have an easier tip. You can use the lid off of a bucket or even a ruffian stand to create something higher for the model to stand on. If your camera is low enough to the ground, you should not be able to see any of the lid or stand. And now the grass or snow should look the appropriate depth. Speaking of stands, ways to hide a stand is next. Horses on stands can be challenging to take photos of, but they're not impossible. Yes, you can Photoshop the stand out, but that can be difficult or take some time. The best way to remove the stand is to hide it while you're taking the photo. This is easiest done at a sandy beach, but it can be hidden in other environments too. You'll want to find a very small hill and place the model just behind it. If you're lucky, the stand is not visible to the camera, but most of the horse's hooves still are. Alternatively, you can put little pebbles in front of the stand. The easiest stands to hide are the circular stands that we see on the Huckleberry Bay mold or Totilas. Obviously, the larger ones like Smarty Jones or Ruffian are much more difficult to hide. A little tip for the Ruffian mold is to bring along a Smarty Jones stand and put Ruffian into the Smarty Jones stands for the photos. Smarty Jones stand is much easier to hide than the large Ruffian stand. Stands like the Bristol or the Jumping Pony mold unfortunately always will need to be edited out. In this photo you can see I used a stick instead of a stand for editing simplicity. I use Photoshop to remove the stick from the photo. I will explain more on how to do this in my video editing. For all you splash lovers out there, play around with what you use to make the splash. Using your hand to throw dirt or splash water works just fine, but sometimes a cup or metal can out of the recycling bucket can be used to achieve a beautiful effect. Play around with it and find out what you like to use best. Another way to spice up your photos is to make it look as if the model is in the environment, not just placed there. This can be done by making them step over a log or walking down a path. Standing horses can be looking out at a beautiful view. The goal is not to just slap a horse in a pretty location. We want them interacting with the environment around them in a realistic way. My next tip is one I've learned after years of experience. Sometimes it's best to not get in the environment. For example, you may not always want to be on the beach. Sometimes the bank just above the beach can provide stunning photos. This is because more of the environment is visible in the photo. You get to see the sand, the trees, maybe some rocks, the water, the sky. Maybe the other side of the lake too, rather than just the sand and the water as you would if you were on the beach. Now, this isn't to say that you shouldn't go on the beach. You totally should get some fun shots. This is just to say that you can get some great photos if you take a step back sometimes. Mix up your photos and get a little bit of everything. Let's talk about contrasting colors. Let's take the Marwari, for example. If you stick him in a fall scene with lots of orange and yellow leaves, he's going to blend into the picture. If you instead place him in a forest of evergreens, he's going to starkly contrast compared to his surroundings, making him pop more in the image and catch your eye. Play around with the colors of models you bring versus the environment. Now we get into the rules of art. The rule of thirds is always a good one to keep in mind. For the rule of thirds, you cut your picture into thirds both horizontally and vertically as seen. The rule of thirds states that you should have your subject on one of the lines. You may also want your environment to align with one of the lines as well. We can see in this picture that the model is on the left vertical line, and the horizon lands roughly on that lower horizontal line. The rule of thirds also suggests having your subject's eye be where one of the lines intersect, though I find this isn't ideal for model horses. One thing that I love about the rule of thirds is that it allows lots of room for eye space. Leading lines is another rule. To have leading lines, you are looking for anything that will lead to the model. In this image, you can see the boards of the bridge are all leading to the model. While this photo isn't the most realistic, I chose it as it is a clear example of leading lines. Pathways and trees can be a more subtle version. Framing is another really great one that I love. Nature often has natural framing. You just need to adjust your angle until the model is perfectly framed. Let's use this photo of an Andalusian for an example. You might notice that the model is standing in front of a light patch and the rest of the photo is taken up by tree branches. The tree branches are framing him, drawing more attention to the model. If you guessed that contrasting colors are also at play here, you would be correct. To set up framing in an image, you're just looking for lines or differences in lighting and nature that will complement your model. Let's look at another image with a different type of framing. The trees in this image, along with the ground, is creating a triangle around the model. This triangle is creating a frame. Avoid tangents. They give the photo an awkward feel. Now, what is a tangent? A tangent is when the corner or edge of an object/model meets with a line of another object. In this picture, we can see the top of the mane meets the line of the mountain in the background. This is a tangent. The next image is the same, except that there is no tangent. You can see that the mane does not touch the mountain's edge. See how it looks a bit better? I hope you have enjoyed tips and tricks. Be sure to check out my other videos in this series. I cover what makes a good spot, editing, and camera settings in my technical aspects videos. If you have any questions regarding the information in this video, please feel free to drop a comment below and I'll do my best to answer them.